Let us welcome Mr. Feixiang, Senior Threat Intelligence Analyst of Group IB, to tell us a little bit more about the dark web. Mr. He, please.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Singapore Cybersecurity Education Symposium 2020 breakout session. My name is Feixiang.
Sorry about that, I'm still human beings. A little joke for the morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Singapore Cybersecurity Education Symposium breakout session. My name is Feixiang. Today, I would like to take you a quick introduction about darknet. Thanks for joining me on this lovely morning. Well, darknet is a place where people are trading and looking for illicit jobs. It is a place full of leaks, scams, and also gossips. So first of all, please allow me to quickly introduce Group IB and myself. Group IB is a Singapore-based provider of solutions that aim at detection and prevention of cyber attacks, and as well as online frauds. Our humble journey started back in 2003. We are proud partner of Interpol, Europol, and many domestic law enforcement in various Asian countries. My cyber threat intelligence unit focuses on tracing the cyber criminals' activities, understand the latest techniques, tactics, and procedures adopted by hacking groups, and monitor illicit cyber trading activities. The Cyber Threat Intelligence Service role essentially is to provide early warning to help defenders decide whether they should plan and spend their defensive resources, to spot a weakness in their defense, and also to find out the breaches that were not detected by existing defensive resources. I myself specialized in malware research and Asia-Pacific threat intelligence operations. Well, darknet used to be a result of subculture, but nowadays, as the cyber criminals increase their activities, we've seen increasing exposure of darknet or dark web in the mainstream media. As you can see here, there are a lot of publications or news reports reporting things like sex abuse or extreme thoughts or illicit trading happen on darknet. And of course, just in a very recent, back in 28th October this year, our dear Channel News Asia also reported the Lazada data sales on the dark web. Kudos to the guys at CNA. And this is one of the exposures I'm talking about when it comes down to the real commoner's life other than the subculture. So, what is darknet, you probably ask? Well, a darknet or dark web is an overlay network within the internet that can be only accessed with specific software configurations and with very strict authentication, authorization, and often it has to use a unique customs communication protocol. So it's not everyday website you can just click in and take a tour. There are two typical darknet. First of all, one is the social networks where people can exchange information, trying to figuring out what are the gossips, and the other type is usually supported by anonymity proxy networks such as Tor. And Tor is a de facto protocol nowadays for majority of the darknet activities now. Well, as I just mentioned, that cyber criminals has expanded their activities, especially given the COVID-19 situation where people increase their daily life, moving from offline life to the online life. You probably just been through the recent online purchase, either your Grab Eat or Amazon Prime Day purchase. All these digital assets are now available targets of the cyber criminals. Hence, they need somewhere to exchange their own intelligence in terms of where they can attack valuable assets, how they can cash out their stolen goods, or sometimes just purely exchange gossips in terms of what are the possible exposures or vulnerabilities they find out. The single most important trait of darknet is anonymity. And that is why the cyber criminals especially prefer such kind of venue. However, the anonymity is not absolute. As later on, I will show you that how your internet service provider could spot a potential connection to the Tor, or how the police enforcement could try to use certain leverage to spot people that are using Tor or darknet for illicit activities. Well, here's a nice chart that I borrowed from somewhere else to give you an overview of what do I mean by dark web. So first of all, on a daily basis, where you can Google the network and trying to access the knowledge on the internet. And that is usually what we said, a surface web. Typically can be Pinterest, AWS, Facebook. The common trait of surface net is that it's Googleable and it's free to join. And then we moved a little bit down to the deep web, where it still can be Googled, but in order for you to join in the community, you have to have an account. So you need to register it. And furthermore, Google are not allowed to crawl all the information on those websites. So for example, LinkedIn, if you have a LinkedIn account, I'm sure you have been told that there are certain privacy settings where you can tell LinkedIn you do not want Google to scrape your information. And that single setting transform the LinkedIn website from a surface web to a deep web. So the deep web common trait is not all information are exposed. You need to go through certain level of authentication, authorization. And then let's move even deeper. That is the dark web. The dark web is a place essentially, in a classic definition, it cannot be Googled. All the membership are by invitation only. However, as we observed in the past 1 year, we think there are a lot of openings or desire for public attention of dark web. Then we see there are several traditional dark web. They are now open their entry point so that the entry point itself can be Googled. But in order to join the community, you still need to go through a sequence of registration application, and you need someone inside to vet you in to prove that you are really a bad guy, so you can join the bad community, things like that. And also because there are a lot of good guys like myself trying to infiltrate such community, they are really alerting when they're trying to understand whether the guy is coming from law enforcement or coming from a cybersecurity researcher like myself. So let's moving down to a little bit more concrete example. What's inside the darknet? First of all, the majority of the classification can be shown as forums. There are 4 major type of forums where you can see on the darknet. First of all, it's for trading, and then usually the trading involves seeing illicit assets. Sometimes it's a law forbidden chemical substance like heroin or some other chemicals, controlled chemicals. And increasingly, we see very organized markets for such kind of trading posts focusing solely on personal information or digital assets such as your credit card information or your passport information. And more extreme, sometimes when hacker hacks in a individual's PC or server, they can actually sell such kind of access to other bad guys. And then comes down to the second type is the services. In a dawn of a specialization of cyber criminals, when in a traditional way, maybe 10 years ago, when we talk about hackers, immediately you think someone that is good at programming, good at software engineering, and know where the software vulnerabilities are. But however, in nowadays, the underground ecosystem has split into a very well organized specialization. There are malware developers who solely focusing on developing the malware, and there are brokers who takes in the developer side and also the buyer side to vet the transaction so that the buyer who does not necessarily have technical knowledge, they can make a purchase of cyber weaponries as if it is a gun, it's a knife, they can buy off the shelf and they can use those kind of powerful tools to do damage. And that is where the service industry comes in. They sometimes they are freelancers to sell the service of development, to sell the service of purely just introducing people to various community. And it can be a brokerage, as if it's a headhunter in the normal life or real estate agents in the normal life. And there comes to the third type, is the job posting site. When I say job, it's most likely some cyber criminals, they know a window of opportunity to conduct bad things. For example, they find some vulnerability in the online banking settings, but they themselves do not necessarily have all the specialties to conduct the job. So they start to recruit people. So they post the job information on the website. If you have watched the movie Ocean 12 or Ocean 11, it feels something like that in real life. And then the last section is information exchange. It's full of gossip, but sometimes you can easily step into the scams. And let's take a quick look at what are the markets in the darknet. This is a screenshot of a darknet that's selling the access to individual computers remotely. So all these computers has been already hacked, and the hacker has the either authentication token or the password or login credentials. So they sell it individually or in bulk. As you can see for Singapore, something are very expensive here. The normal price is usually ranging from $3 to maybe $100, depends on how valuable that PCs are. And then, other than all the aforementioned type of markets, forums, there are other independent sites. For example, it's the threat actor's homepage. Well, threat actor is basically what referring to the cyber criminals. Nowadays, since the cyber criminals activity has expanded a lot, the term hacker is no longer accurate when we trying to classify different types of cyber threat criminals. Instead, we start to addressing them as threat actors. So a threat actor can be the guys who actually attack the server, your PC, or the guys can make the cyber weaponries, or the guys can purely become the shadow broker that buys and sells these illicit goods. So increasingly, in 2020, we see a lot of ransomware threat actors. They build their own web page and they publicly announce that, hey, I've just hacked a certain company. If you do not pay me at this deadline, all the data I get from your server will be posted by the link down below. By doing so, they can first of all attract a lot of public attention and hence increase the pressure of the victim company. And then they can also save their own time by avoiding communicating with the victim company directly one-on-one. And there comes to the usual old profession, that is a porno sites. And increasingly, we see a lot of very illegal porno sites like underage porno and sexual servitude. That is a very bad thing. And besides that, we also see a lot of political and ideology blogs in the darknet. And since there are so many sites in the darknet nowadays, we've seen a lot of new so-called search engines specifically designed for the darknet to help the users of darknets to explore a little bit in the territory. And last but not least, which will surprise you, is that there are a lot of news agencies. They have their own darknet homepage, for example, BBC, Washington Post, and so on. And this is just one of the search engine homepage in the dark web. As you can see, it's fairly 2000 style, but the contents are extremely offensive. Sometimes it can be scam as well. And speaking of the scam, as one man used to say, the greatest scammers are those who scam the scammers. And in the darknet, since the anonymity is one of the key essence of the darknet, so that people would do a lot of things they would never do in the real life, since they know that their real identity is hard to be located. And in this sense, we see a lot of scammers that targeted as threat actors on the darknet, saying, okay, I have a new cyber weaponry. If you want to buy it, you got to pay me some like a prepayment. Or sometimes they put up a fake market to sell things that doesn't exist or they do not possess. And as a defensive mechanism, this is one of the examples that on the dark web, it's called a scam site list, where the darknet community trying to assemble a list of a scam site, they have been spotted in the darknet and they put it on the list. That's quite entertaining as a researcher, to be honest. So the next question would naturally be, who are the users of the darknet? Well, obviously, first of all, it's the cyber criminals. It includes the hackers who actually hack your PCs, and shadow brokers. As I mentioned before, people are just bringing the buy side and the sell side together to make transactions. And since there are little or zero trust in the trading sides, the broker are usually serve as a third-party vetting mechanism. It's almost feel like a pre-2000 when you guys want to do block shopping, but you do not trust the people on who sell the stuff. And there comes to the third-party website like eBay, like Amazon in the early stage, and moving on in like Alibaba or AliExpress later on. And then there comes the professional cyber weaponry developers. They are the true professionals that dig into the software vulnerabilities, for example, iOS, Android, Linux, operating system, and network security as well. Those guys just give you a hint, taste of how valuable their service can be. Is that for iOS 0-day vulnerability on dark web, the average price is ranging from 500,000 to roughly $1 million US, as far as we can see. And of course, if a place is guaranteed anonymity, there always be money launderers and human traffickers going around. And also during the anti-terrorist warfare, back in 2018, 2019, we see a lot of extremists or terrorists trying to broadcasting their ideology in the dark web as well. So speaking enough about the bad guys, actually the dark net is also being used among the commoners like you and me. We see a lot of people such as the whistleblowers who are afraid of retaliation. They usually choose darknet to message board as a means of exposing the unethical conducts they have been observed. And we see casual bloggers even just to set up their own website, darknet website, to write some articles, normal articles, not extreme articles, sharing life experience, and sometimes even technical, very excellent technical bloggers have their own home pages on there. And also, we always think that the free speech or free expression supporters are very active among the darknet social network. They usually post uncensored so-called information, and of course, some of them are conspiracy theory, sometimes are misinformation. And speaking enough about darknet, so what does the darknet has anything to do with my life or with the life of a cybersecurity researcher? Well, first of all, it is a good info source for cyber threat intelligence. And then you're probably going to ask, what does cyber threat intelligence do? So first of all, it's a front line of fighting the cyber criminals. As a team of researchers and analysts, we're trying to provide early warnings to our friendlies power on the defensive side. And we're hoping to help the defenders to decide whether they should plan their limited resources on defending certain upcoming threats. And then very often, well, we find ourselves an info source to be the first to find out what are the leakages on the dark web. So by finding the leakage on the dark web, we can use the reverse methodology, telling our defenders that, well, guys, you have something out there. For example, the Lazada data sales. We then understand that there's a certain leakage on the database itself. Then the Lazada's team can focus on the database security hardening once they are acknowledged on these facts. And also, cyber threat intelligence has its own share in helping the law enforcement or supranational organization like Interpol and Europol. We're trying to understand at a bigger picture what is a specific threat actor group are doing, what is their incentive, how do they profit, how do they cash out their stolen data. And by doing so, we hopefully could help the law enforcement to bring down the actual physical and legality accountabilities to the actual threat actors themselves. And to be specific, what does the cyber threat intelligence do for the darknet data source? So first of all, as I just mentioned, it's a very good place to trace and analyze the threat actor activities. We can observe that the early formation of threat actor groups. In fact, in the past 10 years, we see a lot of newbies come into the play, and they grow their technical skill sets and become a very powerful and professional hacker groups. And we can also observe such kind of evolution, so we understand where does the threat actor get their knowledge and how do they perform certain sensitive operations, and how do they grow as an organization. And also, of course, since there are a lot of jobs posting on the dark web, we can always find out what are the latest interests in the offensive side in terms of what are the potential targets they want to attack. And last but not least, by using special technical methods, we're hoping to de-anonymize the people by collaborating with internet service provider. For example, although Tor can guarantee certain level of anonymity, but for example, the internet traffic of Tor has a special signature. So for example, if you are the only one at a given time in a given subdomain, you connecting to the Tor, although we do not know who is using or which computer is using, but since you are the only one that using, so such kind of technique can help us to do some sort of a reverse social engineering and help the law enforcement to ID you. So don't be too comfortable when you are using the Tor itself. And then the second largest responsibility of cyber threat intelligence is also to monitor the transactions. For example, the stolen data access cells, I just show you in a screenshot, and the new cyber weaponry traits. For example, new exploit kits nowadays are on for sales. Such kind of activity can give the defender side a head start to prepare such kind of widely adopted weaponries into the wild. And also, the hacking services is an ever-changing landscape. So we need to take a very close look at it. What are the new services that people put up in the dark web? For example, in 2020, the most prominent hacking service is ransom as a service. So even as a commoner with almost zero technical skill set, as long as I know the right place, I can just order a ransom attack to someone and pay certain Bitcoins or other way of payment, then my target will be attacked. So that brings down to our last topic. What does the darknet mean to me as a common Singaporean or Singapore resident? So first of all, Singapore is undergoing a massive digitalization. We will see an increasing number of cases that cyber criminals use the dark web to organize attacks on Singapore and its residents. As a regional tech hub nation, Singapore is also developing cloud computing infrastructure for business all over the world. These are the very valuable targets to the cyber criminals as well on the dark web. So in order to counter such kind of offensive side interest, we really need more people, more talent that are interested in finding the machine errors so we can discover the software vulnerability ahead of the hackers. Or if you are a guy that is interested to look for human weakness, you can also join us by, first of all, trying to find out what are the weakness of the offenders, and we can try to bring him down to the law enforcement. And also, if you know and interested in human weakness, you can pretend to be a whitehead, which means it's a good guys, but trying to attack the common user. When they find out the potential vulnerability, they report it instead of abusing it. So last but not least, I would really want to say that fighting cybercrime is very exciting. Please do consider joining the cause of justice. And as a Singapore-based company, I'm very happy to say that our company is looking for young talents or people in the mid-career. We have a lot of job openings here in Singapore. Alexandra Road, we're looking for people such as SOC Analyst. SOC stands for Security Operations Center. We also look for anti-fraud analyst and as well as a business development manager. In terms of student interaction, we have internship and the junior position in integration and implementation engineer. We have junior cybersecurity analyst. We have junior cyber threat intelligence analyst, which will join my team. And last but not least, a junior digital forensic specialist. So speaking of that, thank you very much for your attention. Back to you.
Thank you very much to Feixiang for your very interesting presentation on the dark web, where it is lawless yet not ruleless. So it almost feels like you put up a filter for us and we managed to browse a little bit of the dark web through your presentation. But of course, we do have some questions for the Q&A segment that will be taking place right now. So earlier on, you mentioned that you've done this for a while, and we have audience who are very curious to know, are you able to share with us your own personal education as well as career journey as a senior cyber intelligence analyst?
Yeah, sure. I graduated from Singapore Management University here in Singapore. My major was information system management. I started my early career working for investment bank as a software engineer. then I started to get very interested in the cybersecurity realm. And during my high school period, I happened to help the community fight a very early stage of malware that was widely spread. I really enjoyed that kind of experience. Then I started to learn cybersecurity specific knowledge on the internet. It is so great that there are a lot of free materials that is put it online, and in a very organized way. You can go to GitHub or even Google it and pick your interested topic and spend some personal time. Do yourself a favor and do some self-learning. And you can step into the open community to start as a freelancer or hobbyists. There are a lot of discussion forums that for people for me, maybe 8 years ago, I can freely post my own little research on the forum, and people with more senior experience, they can trying to exchange their opinion or even use my research result. That was the first step for me to step into the cybersecurity research territory as a hobbyist. And then I move on to join Israeli company Checkpoint, and I was focusing on Android security for very obvious reason, because Android is open source. It's easier to find out learning resources online. And then I'm moving on to my current position as a senior cyber threat researcher here with Group IB. So instead of focusing on Android alone, now I'm focusing more on the expanded technology territory, including operating system, internet, and moreover, my current focus is really on how to get the bad guys instead of just focusing narrowly on what are the technicalities involved.
So earlier on, you did mention a little bit about malware and the Android operating system, right? We do have a question over here that's somewhat related to that as well. They are curious to know what is actually the most dangerous mobile malware out there, and how the public can take note of preventing or falling victim to such malware.
Well, there is no such thing of most dangerous there, because there is always the more dangerous version of that. So it's a really a catching game between the defender and the offender. I would say that as a general public, if you're an Android user, I really recommend you to download application only from Google Play, because there are a lot of my researcher friends coming from Google team themselves. They spend a lot of time to vet the application that was that are uploaded to Google Play, and they are trying their best to take out the malwares. I'm not saying Google Play is 100% clean from malware. There are cases here and there, but as a common user, I would still believe Google Play is your first choice of Android downloading. Also, when you use your phone, you have to understand, nowadays there are a lot of information collection, not only on the malware side, but also on the legitimate application. So certain vulnerability in the legitimate application can expose your data to an unauthorized third party. As I would prefer is that, first of all, you always get your operating system up to date. And second, set up a biometric authentication together with a PIN code on your device. So not forget, cybersecurity risk is not only software, but also physical. Imagine when you lost your phone, there are a lot of things can be done on your phone, like bank transactions, like your personal information, or even nowadays we have SIM cards on your phone. So just remember to secure your phone by put up, for example, biometrics, and also for your online transactions, trying to put up a 2FA or MFA, which stands for multi-factor authentication. Usually it's a software token, or it's a SMS, or it's an email sent out when you're trying to log into your online accounts, not only by the username, password, but also with the MFA code on the spot.
That's really good advice right there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Feixiang, and also for taking us into a peep into the dark web.